good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is about Casanova from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome and international podcast, Good Wine and Good Laughs, Season 9, Episode number 1, ladies and gents, and welcome to Casa Casanova. I'm a boy Casanova, ladies and gents, and before I start talking about the wine of the day and the topic of the day, I just want to let you know because I told you last episode that I would make some changes for the recording, and I took a 2 month break of my regular recording. And normally, all my podcast recording was made before. When I started my podcast, there was this platform called Anchor, right? That could record everything, all the audio through my phone, and then I just publish, and then Anchor used to distribute to Spotify and other major podcast platform. So now when I took this break now for this year, they make a lot of changes, and now they use this website, this software called Riverside, that basically I have to, as in my personal opinion, it's too much work, so I cannot record the audio like I used to do first and then make my summary of my topic. So what I decided to do, everything now is going to be available on my YouTube channel. You're going to see the whole thing right here on my YouTube channel. I no longer be able to make recordings to be published on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Everything's going to be through my YouTube channel, but I will still have my 160 episodes available on all those major platforms. So if you are new to my YouTube channel and want to listen to my previous episode for the past 3 years and a half, you can more than welcome to go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. They're all published over there for you to listen to, ladies and gents. So, today is Saturday, August the 3rd, 2023, and the weather here in Orlando is going to be with a scattered thunderstorm, highs of 9 degrees, and lows of 77, ladies and gents. So before I start talking about the topic of the day, I definitely have to talk about the wine of the day here at Casa Casanova. Ladies and gents, I have for you the Rosa Regale. It's a sparkling red wine. And I was trying to move the cork in the kitchen just a little bit to pop here on the video, but when I started to move a little bit, I think I shook the bottle and the pressure just popped the cork out. And this wine is from Italy, ladies, and remember when I told you every time that you buy an Italian wine, and you can see the wrap here, you can see right here, it says the DOCG. And I explained that in my previous video. This means every time that you're going to buy a Italian wine, look for this label on the bottle, because this is the highest. It's a label of the highest quality from the production of the particular wine that you purchase. So once again, if you're going to buy an Italian wine, look for the DOCG label, because you know this wine is shit as far as quality is concerned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so let me show you here real quick. Once again, it's called the Rosa Regale. Once again, it's a sparkling red wine. It's a vintage of 2022. And according to the label in the back, it says that this soft and elegant red sparkling has flavors of refreshed raspberry and crushed strawberries. Enjoy chilled on its own for a sweet treat that is refreshingly unique, or with a chocolate dessert for a pairing truly like no other. Once again, this wine is from Italy. Alcohol percent of this wine is 7%. And basically that's what the information is all about. So, sparkling, more likely. They also call espumante. As you can see, la la. Because all those bubbles. The bouquet of this wine is It's mighty delicious. All right, ladies and gents, it's a very, very good wine. It's sparkling wine. It has a hint of sweetness. You definitely can feel the taste of strawberries and raspberries at the end of the palate. It's a delicious, delicious sparkling wine, ladies and gents. I definitely recommend it, and I give a 10 for this delicious sparkling wine. Very smooth, nice to settle it. It's like I said, very hint of sweetness. Ooh la la. Very, very good wine. Let me pour some more right here, because we're about to get busy right here at Casa Casanova. And once again, like I always do, the picture of this wine is going to be available on all my social medias. I have the two right here, as well as the LinkedIn profile. You're going to see a nice picture of this wine right there, ladies and gents. So I decided to start. There's so much on the news that happened, and while I was taking my break from the first Saturday of July until the last first Saturday of June until the last Saturday of July, a lot of things happened. I got some on the news, but I decided to come with the season 9, episode 1, talking about what's the project 2025 all about. So I'm gonna play a couple videos for you right here, ladies and gents. While we're watching together, I'll be sipping here this delicious sparkling wine. And once I play all those videos, like I used to do on my regular recording, I come back and I give you my 2 cents about what I think on this report about Project 2025. This is a very, very serious matter that's also very important for this 2024 presidential election, ladies and gents. So it is showtime.
Tonight on the Reid Out.
And again, Christians get out.
Tonight on the Reid Out.
And again, Christians get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Do you believe if Donald Trump were elected next year that he would try to stay in office beyond a second term? He would never leave office?
There's no question.
Do you think he would try to stay in power forever?
Absolutely.
The stakes could not be higher. Trump says if he wins, you won't have to vote anymore. Tonight, we are laying out the dangers of Project 2025, the manifesto that would give him that authoritarian power, limit your rights, and force you and your family to change the way you live your life. And we begin this special episode of the Reid Out tonight with a dire warning for our democracy. Over the next hour, I will lay out the greatest threat to the American democratic experiment in modern times. And it's called Project 2025. With just 99 days till Election Day, and with voting starting a lot sooner than that in some states like Pennsylvania, where early voting begins in September, it is imperative that every American understand what Project 2025 is about and how it would affect every single one of us if it was ever enacted. Tonight is just the first of many nights where we will dig into this dangerous plan. And I really want you to listen, learn, take notes, and share it with everyone you know. And if you look on your screen, you'll notice that QR code where you can find our segments on Project 2025 so you can share them. So let's start with the basics. This is the 922-page MAGA manifesto. We printed the whole thing out, and it's brought to you by one of the most conservative DC think tanks, the Heritage Foundation. This is the culmination of nearly 50 years of work that began during the Reagan administration. Broadly, according to Heritage President Kevin Roberts, this is a Christian nationalist plan to end what he calls the Great Awakening and, quote, rescue our kids, reclaim our culture, revive our economy, and defeat the anti-American left at home and abroad.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, this Christian nationalism, that is nothing related to Christ. All right? It's just an excuse to the white racist man and some politicians are using. Moving forward.
This manifesto, which they call a book, is a specific roadmap on how to accomplish that by giving a Republican president unprecedented power. They do that by slashing the federal government's footprint, gutting regulations, slashing the money we spend on children, students, the elderly, the environment, education, and reproductive health care. Every single chapter describes in excruciating detail how to reorder our society by dismantling federal agencies and limiting the federal government's ability to help protect you, the American people, from predatory businesses, excessive taxes, poisoned air and water, you name it. Lately, former President Donald Trump and his campaign, fearful of how unpopular Project 2025 is, have claimed they have nothing to do with it.
I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25. He's involved in Project, and then they read some of the things, and they are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it.
Trump sounds like a Peter. Once they deny and was confronted about it, is that Peter, the one that used to walk with Jesus? And Peter said, I don't know nothing about Jesus. I never saw Jesus. I never heard about this man. Just like Trump all the time. He got caught on the shenanigans. He always denied, I never heard about it. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not the complete picture.
Exactly.
Here is Trump promoting the Heritage Foundation and their little project just 2 years ago.
Heritage does such an incredible job, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Here's the other truth. Roughly 140 individuals who worked in Trump's administration are affiliated with Project 2025. Including 6 former cabinet secretaries and 4 people who were nominated as ambassadors by Trump. The others were either key figures from his first transition, close Oval Office allies, or mid-level agency officials. There's Russell Vought, Trump's former Office of Management and Budget Director, who wrote Chapter 2 in the section titled Taking the Reins of Federal Government. In this chapter, he lays out how to consolidate power around a president's political vision. He explains how you can bypass Congress and only fund projects that ensure consistency with the president's agenda. He is rumored to be Trump's choice for chief of staff. And according to Politico, he and Trump speak once a month. Vought hopes his close relationship with Trump will elevate Christian nationalism as a focal point of a second Trump administration. Then there's Roger Severino, a former Trump administration DOJ official who wrote Chapter 14 about the Department of Health and Human Services and how to restrict abortion access across the country. Severino is a dogmatic anti-abortion militant who strongly believes that an America that allows abortion cannot survive.
The federal government has an absolute role in this. There cannot be now 2 Americas. one America where unborn life is protected and another where unborn life is treated as the equivalent of medical waste.
Yeah.
Right. That is untenable. This has to be settled nationally. A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Yeah.
We can't have two classes of Americans.
In Project 2025, he advocates for using the regulatory powers of the Department of Health and Human Services, the Food and Drug Administration, and the Department of Justice and the National Institutes of Health to end access to mifepristone, prohibit stem cell research, and create, quote, pro-life task force in the White House. There's also Richard Hanania, who helped contribute to Project 2025. Now, he's not a recognizable name, but he's a popular conservative activist with fans like J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk, who just so happens to be a noted racist and sexist. The Huffington Post reported that Hanania used a fake pen name to write articles and social media posts that expressed support for eugenics and forced sterilization of, quote, low IQ people, whom he argued were most often black. And he dreamed about a white awakening, which is when whites en masse realize that they are superior to non-whites and that they'd be better off abandoning multiracial democracy for something resembling a whites-only ethno-state.
All right, ladies, and this sounds just like what the Nazis did in the Jewish during the World War II. Keep in mind.
While those guys are cooking up plans for how the government would work and who it would work for, John McEntee, Trump's former body man and former director of his presidential personnel office, is working with Project 2025 to build the enforcement army. He is currently a senior advisor at Project 2025 with the single task of creating a resume database of dedicated MAGA warriors to staff up every agency. Well, the ones that they don't shutter completely, like the Department of Education, on day one. Here's what McEntee wrote when he took the job. Quote, the presidential personnel database will be of extraordinary value for the 47th president because we are doing a lot of the incoming administration's most important work ahead of time, unquote. Then there is Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, a self-described radicalized Republican who is a champion of Kevin Roberts and his plan to turn the Heritage Foundation into the de facto institutional home of Trumpism. Here you see Vance and Roberts together on a panel last year at an event hosted by the Intercollegiate Institute, which is a conservative organization for college students. This particular discussion was about regime change and the future of liberalism. Guess what else? Kevin Roberts has a book coming out in September, and J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to that book in which he praises Roberts' vision for America. He also wrote, we are now all realizing that it's time to circle the wagons and load the muskets. In the fights that lay ahead, these ideas are an essential weapon. Vance's current political ideology lines up pretty succinctly with that of Project 2025, and his backing of Kevin Roberts, along with his frequent appearances on Tucker Carlson's talk show, might explain why he is on the Trump ticket. This clip from his Senate campaign run might also have helped too.
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people. Yeah, I mean, I think we got to do the hard work of institution building. And again, I've got friends who are working on this very problem right now, such that if there is a Trump administration round 2 or a DeSantis or a Hawley administration, that we actually have the bureaucracy in place so that that person can govern effectively and not be constantly undercut.
Trump, Vance, future staffers, future administration officials, and all of his former employees support parts or all of Project 2025. Do we really think that they would not implement these ideas if given the chance?
Exactly.
Up next, I will detail for you explicitly the things they intend to do, from redirecting how we see ourselves socially, how we build our society, how we get by, and most importantly, and the one I worry about the most, how they will completely end how government functions, leaving a less safe, less prosperous, less free country for the majority of Americans.
When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality.
On its face, you just saw another viral clip of J.D. Vance being weird about Americans needing to have more babies. But this position, which is blatantly anti-democratic, captures how future leaders of a second Trump administration likely define family in the first place. Project 2025 is rooted in Christian nationalism. The architects want to change the framework of our society to restore the family as they understand it as the centerpiece of American life. And their version of family is defined in a very specific way, where only white Christian men have power and they get to exercise it over how their wives and children and the rest of us exist in the world. The sole purpose of women in their perfect society is to, of course, have babies, even if it kills them. Abortion is mentioned 199 times in the Project 2025 manifesto. As part of the project's wish list, Republicans are calling to regulate pregnancy and abortion by misinterpreting a 19th century law known as the Comstock Act to ban the mailing of drugs used in medication abortions. It doesn't stop there. Project 2025 also calls for gutting protections for the LGBTQ community by stripping away federal non-discrimination protections and eliminating all transgender health care under Medicare and Medicaid. Joining me now is Robert P. Jones, president and founder of the Public Religion Research Institute and author of The Hidden Roots of White Supremacy, and Kelly Robinson, president of the Human Rights Campaign and the former executive director of the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. And Kelly, you're acting in both. I'm having you represent both organizations in some ways, but also just talk about this from an activist point of view and from a civil rights point of view, the threats to women. Abortion was not mentioned at the RNC convention, but it's mentioned here, and it is in jeopardy.
Well, that was by design. Yeah, they wanted us to forget that they had taken credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. And the scary thing is, when you look at so much of Project 2025, they are using certain communities as scapegoats, but only to design ways to restrict all of us. You know, J.D. Vance was just talking about how he wanted to stop women from being able to travel across state lines to get care. Well, doesn't that sound a lot like the Fugitive Slave Act, right? Doesn't that sound a lot like what they intend to do for trans people trying to get health care? So what we have to understand is all of this is connected. It is a scary plan. It is a dangerous one. And when you look at some of their strategies, it's flat out creepy how they want to control our lives, who we love, and how we live.
Yeah, and men would be in jeopardy, too, because if you're transporting a woman across state lines, you, too, would be in jeopardy. This is men have daughters, they have sisters, they have wives. So this is a plan to essentially Handmaid's Tale this country by force. And I want to talk to you a little bit, Rob, because you're such a great guy with the data, and you know this data inside and out. This is a very tiny percentage of the American people who are hyper right-wing Christians. I'm a Christian. I grew up in the church, but this is not Christianity as most of us practice it. How small is this group of people that would be exercising power over the rest of us?
Well, the good news for our democracy is that 2/3 of the country rejects this vision.
Yeah.
It's about 3 in 10 Americans who can be identified as Christian nationalists, either adherents or sympathizers to this worldview that you've described fairly well. But 2/3 of the country does not. But it's also 2/3 of white evangelicals that do embrace this. Right. It's a majority of Republicans who do embrace this. So it's wildly out of step with mainstream America, but it is at the heart of the MAGA movement that's fueled by white evangelical Protestants, and that you see all the way into this document.
When you hear Donald Trump say, "Don't worry, Christians, just vote this one time, you'll never have to vote again," what did you hear?
You know, it's remarkable that Trump, this is even a remarkable thing to say, but the most extreme things that Trump says, he tends to say for white Christian audiences. Yeah. That statement about he could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in the middle, that was at evangelical college that he made that statement. I don't think this is hyperbole. I mean, I really do think, like this document, we are getting in real time a telegraphed statement about what they intend to do. And it's an authoritarian white Christian nationalist vision, where, as you said, it's white Christian men who are at the top of the power pyramid. The word order appears over and over. An ordered society, a well-ordered society, ordered liberty. All that is code for hierarchy, right? It's this old 19th century vision that has this ancient, and it's not all Christians, to be sure, but this older vision of a white Christian America really baked into the center of it.
What do you find the most alarming and the most frightening, the thing that you want people to know about, top of mind?
You know, how they are using the federal government to institutionalize bigotry structurally, right? The idea that he would come into office and fire nearly 1 million federal workers, career workers, right? That's scary. And then input foot soldiers that would just carry out his will. The idea that they want to turn the Health and Human Services Agency into the Department of Life and charge it with promoting heterosexuality as the quote unquote ideal family unit, and then attach federal benefits to those criteria. That's scary. And I think ultimately here, we're not just talking about policies that are impacting specific communities, though that's laid out quite clearly in Project 2025. But what we're talking about is the undermining of democracy. He's even saying out loud, if you vote in this election for him, for Donald Trump, that could be the last election you have to vote for. As Dr. Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
The first time. Mm-hmm. People always leave out the first time.
Yes.
What alarms you the most?
There's actually 2 sentences out of all this 900 pages that I think were the most chilling to me to read. I'm just going to read them here.
Yes, please.
They said, an individual must be free to live as his creator ordained in order to flourish. Our Constitution grants each of us the liberty to do not what we want, but what we ought. Now, who gets to define that ought? The very next sentence gives us a clue. The pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like. So that other 900 pages, that's in the foreword of this document. What the other 900 pages really are about that 1950s Norman Rockwell vision of a white Christian America, with white Christian men and their heterosexual marriages kind of reigning up here and everybody else knowing their place.
And for women, what are the most alarming things? Because obviously a national ban on abortion would be a part of it, but there's a lot more to it. I mean, the Comstock Act looms pretty large. Mm-hmm. You could use it in more ways than just to stop abortion.
Absolutely. I mean, this is going to fundamentally reshape American life for women in this country. I mean, you can see all of that laid out in Project 2025. But I do have to say this. It clearly calls for a national ban on abortion. They intend to make that the reality. Also, I mean, the ways that they're defining heterosexuality and the ideal family unit, they are actually trying to put provisions into place to control us in our decisions. I mean, this trad wife, kind of housewife trend that they're trying to promote, that's actually a system of power and control over women's lives. Yeah. So let's be clear. Everything that we enjoy today as our normal way of being, right? From being able to go to work, to raise your kids in the way that you choose, to have a partner that you decide and pick, all of that, they're saying they want the government to control it. So let's be clear. This is a dangerous, dangerous document that's laying out exactly what they plan to do.
Yeah. Robert P. Jones, Kelly Robinson, thank you both very much.
Project 2025, the 920-page policy manifesto by the conservative group, the Heritage Foundation, highlights a wish list of economic and financial plans under a potential Trump second term. While Trump hasn't said he doesn't know anything about Project 2025, he says he doesn't know anything about it. We did a segment recently with NBC's Vaughn Hilliard showing how connected to it he actually is, even if he denies it. Proposals include higher taxes on lower-income Americans, increased student loan payments, and major cuts to Medicaid. Steve Ratner has made his way to the Southwest Wall with charts on those financial implications of Project 2025. And Steve, your first chart shows...
Ladies and gents, please pay attention on those charts that's coming up right now.
There would be higher taxes on the less well-off. Tell us about it.
Sure, Mika. Look, taxes are obviously perhaps issue number one on the minds of many Americans, and Project 25 is very clear about what it wants to do. It essentially wants to restructure our tax system into only 2 tax brackets, 15% for those earning less than the Social Security maximum, which is, I think, about $166,000 a year, and 30% for those earning above. But that would radically change how much different Americans pay. It would actually increase the amount that people making less than $150,000, less than that cutoff, pay $1,000, $2,000, $2,500. They would pay more taxes, but people above the wealthy would pay dramatically less taxes. If you earn $400,000 a year, you would get a tax cut of about $14,000. So an extraordinary shift in the tax burden away from the wealthy and toward the less wealthy. This is an even more extreme version of what Trump did in his tax bill, the TCJA, Tax Cut and Jobs Act, back in 2017 or so. And you can see here the impact of that was similarly regressive in that people at the bottom got a much smaller percentage increase in their tax cut, and people at the top got a much larger tax cut. 85% of this tax bill went to people making more than $75,000 or to business. And so essentially what this proposal would do is take this and put it on steroids.
So, Steve, the Biden administration's attempts to actually lessen the student loan burden really enraged Republicans. In fact, whenever you would bring up January the 6th, it seems that a lot of Republicans go, yeah, well, look what Joe Biden did with student loans. And they were serious. Like, that's sad, but they were serious. This Project 2025 thing actually is going to increase the burden on people with student loans, right?
Yeah, so Joe Biden did make a bunch of proposals. Some of them got litigated and overturned, but then he found other ways, which I'm going to talk about in a second, to address the student loan burden. But what Project 2025 would do essentially would be to eliminate all of what the Biden administration did to cut the burden of student loans. And you can see here, this is broken down by education, and all the way from some college but no degree to master's program. And so in terms of the monthly student loan payments, for the people at the bottom, their monthly average student payments would go from $78 to $308. So a huge increase for those with very little college, people who don't probably have great jobs, and for whom this is a big burden. And then smaller increases, but still substantial, all the way up to people who have master's degrees. So completely wiping out everything the Biden administration has done for the last 3.5 years. But let me show you one impact of what the Biden administration has done. We all know that student loan debt has been a huge problem, and it's gone up and up and up. It's gone up and up per student, and this is even inflation adjusted, and it went up under Trump. But for the first time since at least 2007, student loan debt per borrower has actually gone down for three straight years. Still really high, but you can actually see tangible progress made under the Biden administration in reducing that student loan burden.
Yeah, and so we're talking about higher student loans. We're talking about higher taxes for working class Americans. And finally, let's talk about the impact that it's going to have to Medicaid. You know, there used to be this idea, oh, Medicaid, that just goes to poor people living in urban areas. And what a lot of Americans have figured out since Medicaid cuts have come, no, that's money that actually funds rural hospitals. That's money that funds nursing homes. That's money that funds a lot of medical care, a lot of medical treatment for Americans of all demographics in all parts of America. And Donald Trump if he really does embrace 2025, like he said in the past, he's going to support more massive cuts to Medicare.
Yeah, Joe, you're right.
And Medicaid.
You're right, Joe. Medicaid, I think there's something like 90 million people on Medicaid in America, 38 million children. So you're right. It is not just some urban program for a few poor people. And what Project 2025 wants to do is put limits on how long you can stay on Medicaid, effectively kick people off Medicaid, put in work requirements, put in a whole number of restrictions that would dramatically change the number of people who are on Medicaid. So this map shows you by color coding, the darker colors being the worst hit places, what share of enrollees could lose their Medicaid. So in Virginia, in Wisconsin, in Idaho, you could be talking about 40 to 50% of people being kicked off of Medicaid. In every state, pretty much, you can see that it's anywhere from 10% up to 40% all the way across the country. It would be a massive change in a program that, as you said, is absolutely central to our healthcare system and to the lives of so many people who can't afford their own healthcare. But it's also a question politically of whether this is really a great idea for the Republicans to embrace, because Medicaid is actually extraordinarily popular. Not surprisingly, it's supported by 90% of Democrats versus only 8% who have an unfavorable view of it. But even among Republicans, 65% of Republicans think favorably about Medicaid, and only 32% think unfavorably about Medicaid. So it's terrible policy. It also may be terrible politics for the Republicans to embrace proposals like this.
And it's particularly terrible if you look at the map in states like Virginia, Wisconsin, and obviously important states for this election. Thank you so
Look at this map right here, ladies, and how many people should be affected too.
much. Steve Ratner at the Southwest Wall. They tell us that it's the Southwest Wall. Greatly appreciated.
And ladies and gents, as you watch these 3 videos with me, I want to first of all give a credit to Joy Reid and Joe, Morning Joe, the MSNBC network. Credits for all those videos over here that I used. Credit to this network. And I hope you pay attention on what's at stake, ladies and gents. And another thing, that on the last video, I hope that if you click, it's specifically told about when it comes to the Medicaid, a lot of people on the rural countryside of the country is going to be most affected. And if you pay attention, the most people that support Trump are a lot of people that live on the rural side, the countryside of the United States. So this is too much at stake. That's why this election is very important. And another thing too, I don't know how many people pay attention on what happened in Venezuela with the Maduro regime, because Maduro was the same thing. He came right after the Chavez died with some shenanigans of election. He took over, and the same thing, Project 2025. Maduro has his minions that put in specific positions to hold down anything that the populace, the majority, the people of Venezuela want to change. This election, more likely, Maduro lost. But because a lot of people vote, I saw a couple of reports, like probably 60 to 70% of the Venezuelan people vote against Maduro. And all of a sudden, he holds the results, and we still have some battles going on in Venezuela. That's a perfect example what Trump wants to do. Believe it or not, every time that Trump open his mouth, especially when he's talking to a white audience or a white evangelicals, he's going to tell you exactly what he wants, because Trump doesn't care about you. Trump doesn't care about me. He cares about winning this election so he can get rid of all these lawsuits and the 34 counts of felony that he has over his ass, because he's terrified to go to jail. So I also was watching some TikTok, flip over, and then somebody on the live say, trans people for Trump. Don't you know that Trump really don't care about you? The LGBT community, especially the trans. And I'm telling you right now, I don't be surprised if Trump win, and I pray for the grace of God that this is not going to happen. But let me play the devil's advocate. Let's say, for instance, if Trump won, don't be surprised if they decide to reinstitute the plantation. And I want to see all these black people for Trump, and the Latinos for Trump, if you don't get deported, to be the first one on day one. Now, present to be there. Like, yes, Mr. Trump, I'm here for the plantation. Because that's exactly what happened. That's too much at stake, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever, how you see the United States right now, if Trump get to the office, trust me, believe me, everything is going to square away. You see the reports. You know, I just played 3 other videos. There's other videos that you can find out. You can do a research of this 900-page document. And a lot of people that are involved in the Heritage Foundation are in cahoot over Trump, J.D. Vance, and Trump's minion. So, pray to God that I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing my 2 cents. I'm using my podcast as also as a platform for everybody to be aware of what Trump's plan, and the Republicans are thinking about how they want to run this country. All the rights, all the benefits, all that is going to be squared away. If you're not white, male, and rich, wealth, male, white male, believe me, you are on the boat too. That's going to get the business by Trump. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's your boy Casanova for this finalize the season 9 episode number 1. So please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. And I'm going to leave the credits and also the links of each video that you will watch today. If you want to go there, watch some more. If you want to send that to your people, your family, friends, please, ladies and please keep sharing all this information, all the details of Project 2025. If you care about your liberty, if you care about your wife, your daughters, your mama, your aunts, your nieces, if you care about your liberty. And another thing too, if you work for a union, if you work in a job that has a union, Trump wants also to get rid of all unions. So the fight that the unions do to protect your pay, your rights, for you to make more money, to have your vacation, your sick days, sick leave, and all yada yada. Great work that unions do. I work for a company, and I'm a union member, and I truly believe in the power of unity through the union for us to get the money and the rights and the finance and the benefits, all the profits that the big companies do. So once again, this is boy Casanova. Please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. And do the best what you can do, what you got. Salute. And I see you next Saturday with another awesome episode for the Good Wine and Great Laughs podcast. Holla!
With the pull up for the #1 spot. Pushing my rap like the push I on the block.